What's up, safari lovers? Brian here, sitting here in the backyard of our little hacienda on Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate. And I thought I'd have a quick chat about going into a private game reserve for game drives on a beer budget. So what does that mean, or what is a private game reserve? Well, I'm sitting here in South Africa and there is a lot of private game reserves. So basically they are game reserves that are owned by a business, company, family, that unless you're generally staying there, you're not allowed to go on those reserves. And some of the reserves are part public and part private. So you may be able to go onto a public reserve, semi-public reserve like Manyaleti, and then there's private concessions on there that you can't go onto with your own vehicle. However, there is a way you can go to some of the private game reserves around Hoedspruit without having the cost of staying there. So if you're staying on the wildlife estate where we are, which has general game and wildlife on it as well, you can go on to what would be considered big five reserves and go on game drives. Now, I checked out a few. One of the good places to go if you're looking for information, and this is a tip I got a few years ago from someone that lived in Hoedspruit, and that is to go on, there's two Facebook pages, Hoedspruit Village and Hoedspruit Town, and you can go on there and ask questions like this if you want to find out information about anything to do with your stay in the area, whether it could be who's doing tours to Kruger or accommodation or anything else like that. So I kind of found this information on the Hoedspruit Town Facebook page. Now, I reached out to three, so I'll pop the links down below, and we've been on two game drives in the private game reserves, on two of the private game reserves, and the other one was actually booked out for the dates we wanted to. So they were Shakudu, Pridelands, which basically abuts the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate where I am now, but it's fenced off. That part of it, there's a fence line along there, but it's all open out to other parks and Kruger and everything else. So the animals are free to come and go as they please. They're all part of this greater Kruger area here. There was Balule, which I couldn't go on. And there's a couple more that I'm checking out. Kapama, which is very close to town. So one of the things about these is they're very, very close to town. So if you're thinking, if you're staying in Hoedspruit, for instance, and you're just needs to go to Kruger, it's about roughly 50 minutes or so to the Orpen Gate. You can actually go 2 minutes, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. For Pridelands, we got picked up by the guide here. It's a local guide who does game drives out there. So the thing is about the private reserves is you have the ability to go off-road. So as long as the terrain isn't totally flooded and you're going to really tear up the ground, you can go off-road. So for instance, if there's a rhino or they've found tracks, they can be very hard to see in the thick bush, but you can, on these private game reserves, your tracker can go out, have a look, and if there's something deep in the bush, they can go off road and go and check out what we're looking for. It's all done responsibly. You know, there's a very good standard here in South Africa for responsible driving. So what are you going to see? It's like any other game drive to an extent with the animals. You're not necessarily going to see, they are classified as big five reserves. It doesn't ever mean there's guarantees, so don't get me wrong, but they all have buffalo, lion, ellies, rhino and leopard. They can also get wild dogs, painted wolves as they're also known, and Cape hunting dogs, and they do come through, and some days they have them several days in a row. Like Pridelands, although we didn't see them on Pridelands, they definitely saw tracks and they'd seen them over over 2 or 3 days. So they're definitely there. But we literally had the vehicle to ourselves, and I don't think a lot of people know about this. So if you're, for instance, staying around Hoedspruit and you're thinking of an option to go on a safari, very good guides. We've had good guides, and the thing is the guides that go in there, they know the terrain very well because they guide in there every single day, often twice a day if there's enough guests. They'll go out 4 game drives. So their ability to know what's going in on the bush, know all the trails and tracks and things like that, is top notch. Now the beer budget, well, maybe not quite 1 beer, but certainly a couple of cases of beer. So for roughly, we're looking, their ballpark around the same price, is around $70 for a 2 to 3 hour game drive. Now Pridelands is, they do a morning, the guide we went with, they do a 3 hour in the morning, 3 hour in the afternoon. Shakudu, my pronunciation's terrible, it's like TSHUKUDU. It's only about 10 minutes north of Hoedspruit. They had a whole program, so you could do a 2 hour morning game drive, so 6 till 8. You could do a 2 hour morning game drive with breakfast, which is what we did. You can do a mid-morning or mid-ish morning game drive, 2 hours. Then they have a 3 hour. They have a 3 hour game drive in the afternoon. They got all these other little bits. They can have dinner and stuff like that, and it's, you know, the cost will just depend. But generally speaking, you're looking around $70 to $80 depending on which one you take. Balule, oh gosh, off the top of my head, that was maybe a little bit more expensive, but obviously very popular. It's a large reserve to the north of Hoedspruit with a lot of entrances. So there's like 3 gates that I know of. So Balule is quite a large reserve here. So if you're thinking that you might want to stay around Hoedspruit, or even if you're around Hoedspruit and travelling to Kruger, certainly consider the private game reserves. There's you know, the advantage of being able to go off-road, the advantage of the guides knowing the trails and the tracks so well, will definitely enhance your chances of seeing wildlife. So give it a crack if you're here. Not too expensive. The links I'll give you again will be, you'll be able to contact them and get their up-to-date prices. Dates were pretty good for Pridelands and Tshukudu. As I said, Balule, but with the COVID thing, we had to leave the dates for the last moment. So, you know, you've still got to get your PCR test from Australia, for instance. So we don't like to book too many things, you know, because you have to pay up front. But certainly check it out. It's a great way. I've reached out again to another one called Kapama. There was also King's Lodge in Timbavati, who I was in contact with. So you can reach out to King's Lodge in Timbavati. These may all change. A lot of these businesses are obviously trying to value add for their own business to just get, because of the lack of tourists here at the moment. So it may change that some of them don't offer it down the track when they're full. But King's Lodge in the Timbavati, they basically said, let us know a week out and we'll kind of know our numbers. Or otherwise, if they're a full lodge, they can't fit you on the vehicle. But at the moment, we're just finding a lot of the lodges are still, you know, barren of people. So you've got a good chance. And, you know, Timbavati is also a very well-known private reserve, and it's kind of, if you're heading towards Orpin, but it's easier to look up on Google Maps or whatever, so you can do that. So I hope that helped. Please subscribe to the channel. Give it a thumbs up if this was helpful information. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.